I had just moved to a quiet town after everything in my life fell apart. My relationship, my job, and the shaky ties I had with my family. I needed space, silence, something to help me feel human again. That's when I discovered the small stone church on the edge of the hill. At first, I went in just to sit and think. No prayers, no expectations, just peace. But then I heard him. His voice, steady, calm, and full of emotion, filled the room like it belonged there. Father Adrian wasn't like any priest I'd ever met. He wasn't cold or distant. He was warm, attentive, and when he looked at you, it felt like he truly saw everything you were hiding. I kept coming back, not out of faith, but because something about him kept drawing me in. I told myself it was spiritual comfort, but deep down I knew it was more. He'd greet me by name after the service, and soon enough, we began having short conversations. Just simple things, weather, books, life. But I could feel it shift. He started asking more personal questions. He'd linger when I answered, like my words mattered more than anyone else's. Once, when I was leaving, he placed his hand gently on mine and said, "Don't let the past keep you from healing." I walked home with my heart thudding. Our conversations moved outside the church. He'd invite me to walk through the gardens with him. He said it helped him think. It helped me breathe. I never once brought up what I was feeling, and neither did he. But it was there. In every pause, every soft glance. One evening, I told him I was starting to feel something again, something I thought was lost forever. He didn't respond with words, just looked at me for a long moment before quietly saying, "Sometimes, what we're searching for is placed in front of us for a reason." I went home that night full of guilt, excitement, and confusion. I knew he had taken vows. I knew what this could mean for him, for me. But the lines between spiritual care and emotional closeness had blurred. And I didn't stop it. I didn't want to. The truth is, I began to crave his presence. I'd replay our conversations in my head. Every look, every word. I was falling, and I couldn't tell if I was being led or if I was simply choosing to follow a dangerous path. What I did know was this. I wasn't alone in this feeling. He was walking it with me, whether or not he'd admit it. I started noticing the way he looked at me when others weren't around. It wasn't just friendly or pastoral, it was something else, something unspoken but unmistakable. There was a new softness in his voice when he spoke to me, a hesitation that hadn't been there before. And though we still met under the guise of casual talks, it was clear those talks meant more than either of us was admitting. I asked him once if he ever felt conflicted, if his role ever made it hard to be human. He looked away, took a breath, and said, "There are moments I question everything." That one sentence told me more than any confession could. I kept those words close. They gave me permission to feel what I was feeling, to believe this wasn't one-sided. We started meeting in quieter corners, away from the usual paths, the kind of places where fewer eyes could see. And in those spaces, the way he opened up became different. He spoke of loneliness, of expectations, of the weight of being someone people always looked to but never truly saw. I listened, silently battling the hope blooming in me. I told myself this was still innocent. No one had crossed a line. Yet, it all felt like standing on the edge of something we weren't ready to name. I should have stepped back. I should have seen the signs. But it's hard to walk away when someone gives you exactly what you've been missing: attention, understanding, emotional safety. And he gave all of that, deliberately or not. But it wasn't just what he gave, it was what he didn't say. The silence between certain questions, the way he let moments linger. It felt intentional, like he was guiding us both into a space where feelings could grow without being named. And they did. Rapidly. One afternoon, a woman who volunteered at the church approached me after service. She was kind, older, and had always greeted me with a warm smile. But that day her tone changed. She asked me if I was getting too close to Father Adrian. I laughed it off, trying to sound casual, but my face must have said too much. She didn't press, only said, "Just be careful. He's kind, yes, but not all kindness is safe." I felt the sting of her words, but I brushed them aside. I didn't want warnings. I wanted this feeling to be real. Later that week, I stayed behind after lighting a candle. As I wandered through a side hall, a folded piece of paper caught my eye on a small bench behind the altar. Curious, I picked it up. It was a handwritten letter. At first, I thought it might be part of someone's private prayer. But as I read the words, my heart dropped. It spoke of love, betrayal, and heartbreak. It ended with, "I trusted you, even when I knew I shouldn't." The letter was signed with only a name, Anna. I didn't know who she was, but I suddenly felt like I wasn't the first. I couldn't shake the name. Anna. That letter didn't sound like a confession of faith. It sounded like a goodbye from someone who had been used. I thought about Father Adrian's silence. Whenever I hinted at deeper feelings, his subtle ways of drawing me in without ever offering something real. I needed answers, and I needed them without the polite masks we both wore. The next time I saw him, I asked directly, "Do you know someone named Anna?" His face barely changed, but his eyes flickered. He said no, too quickly, too flatly. I didn't push, but I knew. He was lying. I found the older volunteer again. I told her I read something I shouldn't have. She didn't act surprised. She said softly, "You're not the first. And sadly, you may not be the last." She spoke carefully, like each word weighed something. Years ago, another woman had been close to Father Adrian. She stopped coming to church, left town eventually. Then another followed. Same story. Nothing ever public, but the pieces were there for anyone who looked close enough. He had a pattern, and I had walked right into it. The truth burned. He hadn't chosen me because I was special. He had chosen me because I was vulnerable. And like the others before me, I'd mistaken his attention for something sacred. I thought I was different, that I was the exception. But I was just next. Still, I needed to hear it from him. Asked for one more conversation. This time I didn't pretend. I laid out everything. The letter, the women, the lies. At first, he denied it all, then softened, said things like, "People misunderstand," and "emotions are complicated." He called it connection, not manipulation. He said he never meant to hurt anyone. But intentions don't erase harm. He talked about loneliness, about the silence of the role he'd taken, about needing to feel close to someone. I listened, but not with the same ears anymore. What once sounded like depth now felt like excuses. He had turned vulnerability into opportunity, and I wasn't going to let him do it again. When I said I was done, that I'd be telling someone, he didn't beg. He simply looked tired, like he'd seen this ending before. I didn't go public. I wasn't out for scandal or revenge. But I did record a video, a personal story without names, just truth. I uploaded it quietly. It wasn't about shaming him. It was about warning others like me. People who confuse charm for care, who think being seen is the same as being loved. I didn't need him to be punished. I just needed to be free. And for the first time in weeks, I finally felt like I could breathe again. Not because he gave me peace, but because I had taken it back. The video reached more people than I ever expected. Messages started coming in, some from strangers who shared similar experiences, others from women in the same town who had been too afraid to speak. One message stood out. It was from someone who said, "I thought I was crazy. Thank you for making me feel seen." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. What he had done wasn't a private mistake. It was a pattern that had quietly hurt people who had no idea how to speak up. A few weeks later, the church began to feel different. Attendance dropped. Whispers grew louder. Eventually, word spread that Father Adrian had taken a leave of absence. No formal explanation, just a quiet disappearance. And yet, nothing felt satisfying about it. There was no public reckoning, no apology. Just silence. But I had changed. I wasn't waiting for closure from someone who never offered honesty. I had made peace with the fact that sometimes the person who seems to heal your wounds is the one digging deeper into them. The woman who first warned me stopped me outside one day and said, "You did what we couldn't. You spoke when it mattered." I thanked her, but I knew the strength hadn't come easy. I had spent nights battling guilt, questioning myself, wondering if I had exaggerated everything. But in the end, the truth doesn't need to scream. It just needs to be steady. and mine had finally found its voice. I began volunteering at a local center, nothing connected to religion, just people helping people. It felt good to be useful, to offer something without expecting anything in return. That experience showed me what real care looked like: quiet, consistent, and without ulterior motives. I met someone there too. Not romantically, not yet. But someone who listened without trying to fix me. Someone who valued honesty over charm. It reminded me that love, real love, doesn't hide in shadows or speak in riddles. It stands in the open and offers truth. Looking back, I don't hate Father Adrian. That would mean holding on to him. And I've let go. What he did was wrong, but carrying his choices isn't my burden anymore. I learned to see the difference between being chosen and being used. I learned that betrayal isn't always loud. It often wears the disguise of care. But the greatest betrayal is the one you allow to repeat when you stay silent. I didn't stay silent. My story isn't about a priest or a church or even heartbreak. It's about reclaiming what someone tried to twist: my trust, my intuition, my voice. And if even one person walks away from something toxic because of it, then the pain wasn't wasted. It became purpose. And that's what healing really looks like. Not forgetting, not pretending, but choosing to walk forward with eyes open, heart guarded, and spirit intact.